I was standing in my garage in Fairbanks, Alaska, staring at the empty space where my Snowmachine registration should have been, when I realized that someone had actually broken into my house and stolen it. Not the Snowmachine itself, mind you, just the registration document. Who does that? The answer, as it turned out, was Patricia Henderson, the president of the Northwood Hills Homeowners Association, and she was about to learn a very expensive lesson about mail theft and government documents. My name is Jensen, and I had moved to Fairbanks 3 years ago for work as a civil engineer. The winters were brutal, but I loved them. There was something pure about the cold, the snow, the endless white landscape. My 2023 Polaris Snowmachine was my pride and joy, my way of getting around when the roads became impossible, and my ticket to the backcountry on weekends. I kept all my important documents in a filing cabinet in my garage, including the registration that I had just renewed 2 months prior. It was a Tuesday morning in late January when I discovered it missing. I needed to take my Snowmachine out to a job site about 40 miles north of town, and I always kept my registration in the storage compartment when I rode. But when I went to get it from my filing cabinet, the folder was empty. I tore apart my garage, thinking maybe I had misplaced it, but nothing. Then I checked my security camera footage. There she was, clear as day. Patricia Henderson, with her signature blonde bob and her bright pink parka, walking into my garage at 2 in the afternoon the previous Friday. I had been at work like any normal person. She went straight to my filing cabinet, pulled out several folders, looked through them, took something, and left. The whole thing took maybe 3 minutes. I sat there watching the footage over and over, trying to make sense of it. Patricia had been on my case since I moved in. The HOA rules in Northwood Hills were extensive, and she enforced them like a dictator. My grass was too long in the summer. My garbage cans were visible from the street. My truck was parked facing the wrong direction. Every week, there was a new violation notice in my mailbox, each one more ridiculous than the last. But this was different. This was not just annoying, it was illegal. She had entered my property without permission and taken a government document. I saved the footage to 3 different drives in my cloud storage. Then I called the police. Officer Mike Torres arrived about 30 minutes later. He was a solid guy in his 40s who I had met a few times at the local coffee shop. I showed him the footage, and his expression went from professional interest to genuine shock. "That's Patricia Henderson," he said, stating the obvious. "She's the HOA president?" "Yeah. She has been harassing me for 3 years, but this is beyond harassment. She came into my garage and stole my Snowmachine registration." Officer Torres watched the footage again, making notes. "Your garage door was open. I leave it open sometimes when I am expecting a delivery. There was a package coming that day that was too big for the porch." I pulled up the delivery confirmation on my phone. See, delivered at 1:45. She came in 15 minutes later. Even if the door was open, she had no right to enter your property or take anything. He looked at me seriously. "Do you know why she would want your registration?" That was the question I had been asking myself all morning. The only thing I can think of is that she has been trying to get me to move my Snowmachine. She says it is an eyesore and violates some obscure HOA rule about recreational vehicles. But my Snowmachine is in my garage. It is not visible from the street. I have read the covenants, conditions, and restrictions front to back. I am not violating anything. Officer Torres nodded slowly. "I will go have a conversation with her. This is pretty clear-cut. She is on camera committing theft and trespassing." After he left, I called the Alaska DMV. The office in Fairbanks was relatively small, and I had dealt with them enough times to know most of the staff. A woman named Susan picked up. DMV, this is Susan. How can I help you? Hi, Susan. This is Lucas Jensen. I need to report that my Snowmachine registration was stolen and request a replacement. There was a pause. Stolen? That is unusual. Do you have a police report number? I gave her the case number Officer Torres had provided. The theft was caught on camera. I am going to need a new registration issued, but I also want to make sure the old one is invalidated so no one can use it. Let me pull up your account, I heard typing. Okay, I see your registration here. 2023 Polaris, correct? That is right. I can issue a replacement and flag the old document as stolen. If anyone tries to use it or make changes to your registration with that document number, it will trigger an alert in our system. We will know immediately, and so will law enforcement. Perfect. That is exactly what I need. I have to ask, do you know who stole it? I do, and the police are handling it. But I would not put it past this person to try something with it. Susan's voice took on an interested tone. Well, with this flag, if she or he or whoever tries anything, we will know. The replacement will be mailed to you within 5 business days. In the meantime, I am emailing you a temporary registration document. Just print it and keep it with you. After I hung up, I felt slightly better. At least I had taken action. But I could not shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Officer Torres called me back that evening. I spoke with Patricia Henderson. She denied everything at first, but when I told her we had video evidence, she changed her tune. She claims she was conducting an HOA inspection and needed to verify that your Snowmachine was properly registered because someone had filed a complaint. An HOA inspection. She broke into my garage. I pointed that out. She insists the garage door was open, and she had the authority under the HOA rules to inspect properties for violations. I told her that even if that were true, which I seriously doubt, she had no right to take your property. She then said she only borrowed it and was planning to return it. Where is it now? She would not tell me. She said she did not have it anymore. Lucas, I am going to be straight with you. This is a weird case. She is clearly in the wrong, but she is being cagey. I documented everything, and I told her she needs to return your registration immediately or face charges for theft. But my gut tells me there is more to this. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about why Patricia would want my registration. It was not like she could sell it or use it for herself. The document had my name, my address, and my Snowmachine VIN number on it. It was worthless to anyone but me, unless she was planning to do something with it, something that required my registration. The next morning, I got my answer. I received an email from the Alaska DMV with the subject line, "Alert! Attempted transaction on your account." My stomach dropped as I opened it. According to the email, someone had attempted to transfer ownership of my Snowmachine to another party using my registration document at the DMV office in North Pole, a small town about 20 minutes from Fairbanks. The transaction had been flagged because the registration document number was marked as stolen. The DMV staff had refused to process the transfer and had contacted law enforcement. I immediately called Officer Torres. She tried to transfer my Snowmachine. She went to the DMV and tried to put it in someone else's name. I just got the call from the North Pole Police Department. Patricia Henderson walked into the DMV this morning with your registration and a forged bill of sale claiming you had sold your Snowmachine to her daughter. The DMV staff caught it right away because of the flag on your document. Her daughter. She tried to steal my Snowmachine by transferring it to her daughter. That is what it looks like. The North Pole PD has her in custody right now. They are charging her with attempted fraud, forgery, and theft. This just went from a misdemeanor to a felony. I felt a mix of vindication and disbelief. Patricia Henderson, the woman who had spent 3 years citing me for having my trash cans visible for more than 12 hours, had just tried to commit fraud to steal my snow machine. What happens now? I asked. Now the legal system takes over. You will need to give a statement and you might be called as a witness if this goes to trial. But Lucas, save all your documentation. The security footage, the DMV emails, everything. This is going to get messy. He was not wrong. By that afternoon, the story had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Patricia Henderson, beloved HOA president and self-appointed neighborhood watchdog, had been arrested for trying to steal a snow machine. The irony was not lost on anyone. My phone started ringing off the hook. Neighbors I had barely spoken to were calling to ask if it was true. Some were supportive. Others were skeptical. A few were outright hostile, accusing me of setting Patricia up because I had a grudge against the HOA. The most interesting call came from a man named Robert Chen who lived 3 streets over. Lucas, I do not think we have officially met, but I wanted to reach out. I heard what happened with Patricia, and I believe I might have information that could help you. What kind of information? Can we meet in person? I would rather not discuss this over the phone. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown that evening. Robert turned out to be a mild-mannered accountant in his 50s. He ordered a black coffee and sat down across from me with a folder stuffed with papers. I have lived in Northwood Hills for 8 years, he began. And for the last 4, I have been documenting everything Patricia Henderson does as HOA president. I am not proud to admit this, but she has made my life hell, and I have been building a case to have her removed. He opened the folder and spread out dozens of documents, violation notices, emails, certified letters, even photographs. She has been abusing her position for years. Selective enforcement of rules, retaliation against homeowners who question her, unauthorized fines. But I never had concrete evidence of anything illegal, until now. Why are you showing me this? Because you have what I have been looking for, proof that she is willing to break the law to get what she wants, and I think I know why she targeted you specifically. He pulled out a document that made my blood run cold. It was a proposal for a community park signed by Patricia Henderson and the HOA board. The proposed location, my property. This cannot be right. They cannot just take my property. They cannot, but they have been trying to find a way. Your lot is in the perfect location, right at the entrance to the neighborhood. Patricia has been pushing this park idea for 2 years, but you are in the way. I think she was trying to force you out by making your life miserable, and when that did not work, she decided to get creative. By stealing my snow machine. By creating a reason to claim you were in violation of HOA rules. Think about it. If she could prove your snow machine was not properly registered, or was stolen or involved in some kind of fraud, she could use that as grounds to put a lien on your property or force you out for illegal activity. It was convoluted, but it made a twisted kind of sense. That is insane. It is, but Patricia has always been willing to go to extremes. I just never thought she would cross this line. He closed the folder. I am going to the next HOA board meeting with all of this. With your permission, I would like to include what happened to you as evidence that Patricia needs to be removed immediately. You have my permission, and anything else you need from me. The next few days were a blur of legal activity. I gave my statement to the police, provided copies of all my evidence, and met with a lawyer to discuss my options. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Diana Ross, no relation to the singer, told me I had a solid case not just for criminal charges but also for a civil lawsuit against Patricia and potentially the HOA. What she did was not just theft. It was an attempt to defraud the DMV, which is a federal document. She forged a bill of sale, which is forgery. And if you can prove she did this as part of a larger scheme to force you off your property, that is conspiracy and possibly racketeering if other board members were involved. I just want my registration back and for her to leave me alone. Deanna smiled. You will get more than that, trust me. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early February. Patricia was released on bail with conditions that included staying away from me and my property. But that did not stop the HOA from continuing to function. In fact, things got worse. 2 days after Patricia was released, I received a certified letter from the HOA board. It was a notice of a special assessment fee for all homeowners to cover legal expenses related to Patricia's case. The fee was $5,000 per household, due within 30 days. I could not believe what I was reading. They were trying to make the entire neighborhood pay for Patricia's criminal defense. I called Deanna immediately. Can they do this? Absolutely not. This is a personal criminal matter. HOA funds cannot be used for individual legal defense in a criminal case, and they certainly cannot levy a special assessment for it. This is going to look very bad for them. The neighborhood exploded. Homeowners were furious. The HOA board had scheduled an emergency meeting for the following Saturday, and it was clear that things were about to come to a head. The meeting was held at the community center, a small building at the entrance to the neighborhood. By the time I arrived, there were easily 100 people crammed into a space meant for 50. The tension was palpable. The HOA board sat at a table at the front. Patricia was not there, obviously, but the vice president, a nervous-looking man named Gary Williams, was trying to maintain order. It was not going well. Please, everyone, we need to stay calm, Gary was saying, but his voice was drowned out by angry shouts. Robert Chen stood up and made his way to the front. He had his folder with him. I have a motion to make. I move that Patricia Henderson be immediately removed as HOA president, and that the board conduct a full audit of HOA finances and activities for the past 5 years. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Gary looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. We cannot just remove Patricia without due process, he stammered. She is facing criminal charges for felony fraud, someone shouted. I think that is grounds for removal. Another board member, a woman named Stephanie, tried to interject. This is a personal matter. It has nothing to do with her role as HOA president. That was when I stood up. I had not planned to speak, but I could not stay silent. It has everything to do with her role as president. She targeted me because I own property she wants for a community park. She has been abusing her position for years, and now she is trying to use HOA funds to pay for her criminal defense. How is that not relevant? The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at Gary and Stephanie. Gary's face turned red. That is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Robert held up his folder. I have plenty of proof. I have been documenting Patricia's abuse of power for 4 years. I have emails where she discusses forcing Lucas off his property. I have financial records showing irregular expenditures that were never properly disclosed. And I have testimony from at least a dozen homeowners who have been harassed and fined without justification. Stephanie stood up abruptly. This is not the appropriate forum for this. We need to table this discussion until we can consult with our lawyer. Your lawyer? Someone shouted. You mean the lawyer we are all being forced to pay for? The meeting descended into chaos. People were shouting, arguing, demanding answers. Gary tried to adjourn the meeting, but no one was listening. Finally, Robert made his way to the microphone. "I am calling for a vote of no confidence in the entire HOA board. According to our bylaws, any homeowner can call for such a vote with a petition signed by 20% of residents. I have that petition right here, with signatures from 30% of the neighborhood. I am submitting it now." He handed the petition to Gary, who looked at it like it was a live grenade. The meeting finally adjourned, but the damage was done. The HOA was in full revolt. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation continued to escalate. The special assessment was withdrawn after multiple homeowners threatened legal action. An independent auditor was brought in to review HOA finances, and what they found was damning. Patricia had been using HOA funds for personal expenses, including landscaping for her own property, personal travel, and even a new car that she had claimed was for HOA business. The total amount of misappropriated funds was over $60,000. The district attorney added embezzlement charges to Patricia's growing list of crimes. Her bail was revoked, and she was taken back into custody. The local news picked up the story, and suddenly, Patricia Henderson was infamous throughout Fairbanks. The preliminary hearing became a full-blown media circus. I had to push my way through reporters to get into the courthouse. Inside, Patricia sat with her lawyer, looking nothing like the confident, commanding woman who had terrorized the neighborhood for years. She looked small, defeated, and scared. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. The theft of my registration, the forged bill of sale, the attempted fraudulent transfer at the DMV, and now the embezzlement of HOA funds. The evidence was overwhelming. My security footage was played for the court. The DMV records were entered as exhibits. Robert Chen's documentation was presented as evidence of a pattern of abuse. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue that this was all a misunderstanding, that Patricia had made errors in judgment but had no criminal intent. The judge was not buying it. "Miss Henderson, you are facing multiple felony charges. The evidence suggests a deliberate pattern of criminal behavior, including theft, fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. I am denying bail and remanding you to custody until trial." Patricia started crying, but the judge was unmoved. As she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, certainly. Vindication, absolutely, but also a kind of sadness. This woman had destroyed her own life because she could not stand the idea of not getting her way. The trial was scheduled for April. In the meantime, the HOA underwent a complete restructuring. The entire board resigned, and new elections were held. Robert Chen was elected president, and the first thing he did was dissolve the proposed community park project and issue a formal apology to me and several other homeowners who had been targeted by Patricia. My replacement Snowmachine registration arrived in the mail, and I framed the old DMV alert email as a reminder of the absurdity of the whole situation. When April came, the trial lasted only 3 days. Patricia's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA was not interested in going easy on her. The evidence was presented, witnesses testified, and the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Patricia Henderson was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for fraud and forgery, plus an additional 3 years for embezzlement. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA and to me personally for legal fees and damages. As I walked out of the courthouse that day, I ran into Officer Torres. He shook my head and grinned. "Hell of a case. I have been doing this for 20 years and I have never seen anything quite like it." Me neither. I still cannot believe she thought she could get away with it. That is the thing about people like Patricia. They get so used to being in control, so used to people backing down, that they start to think they are untouchable. She probably thought she could just take your registration, forge some documents, and make your snow machine disappear. She never considered that you would fight back or that there were systems in place to catch her. The DMV flag was genius. If Susan had not suggested it, Patricia might have actually pulled it off. Which is exactly why those systems exist. Anyway, congratulations. You stood up for yourself, and you took down a bully in the process. The neighborhood is better off. Life in Northwood Hills gradually returned to normal, or at least a new kind of normal. The new HOA board was reasonable and actually followed the rules. Violations were handled fairly, and there was no more selective enforcement or harassment. I kept my snow machine in my garage, properly registered and ready to go whenever I wanted to head out into the wilderness. Every time I looked at it, I thought about how close I had come to losing it, because one person had decided they had the right to take whatever they wanted. But the story did not quite end there. About 6 months after Patricia was sentenced, I received a letter from her. It had been forwarded through her lawyer, and I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short and handwritten. Patricia apologized for what she had done. She claimed that she had been under a lot of stress, that being HOA president had consumed her life, and that she had lost perspective. She said she knew her apology could not undo the harm she had caused, but she wanted me to know that she regretted her actions and hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive her someday. I read the letter twice, then folded it and put it in a drawer. I did not know if I would ever forgive Patricia Henderson. What she had done went beyond a simple mistake or a moment of poor judgment. She had deliberately targeted me, broken into my property, stolen from me, and tried to commit fraud, all because she wanted something that was not hers to take. But I also recognized that she was paying a heavy price for her actions. 6 years in prison, her reputation destroyed, her life in ruins. In a way, I felt sorry for her, even though she had brought it all on herself. Deanna called me a few weeks later with news. Patricia's restitution payments had started coming through. The HOA had received a significant portion of the embezzled funds, and I had received a check covering my legal fees and additional damages. There is one more thing, Deanna said. Patricia's daughter reached out to my office. She wants to apologize to you in person. I was surprised. Patricia's daughter, whose name was Michelle, had been peripherally involved in the scheme. The forged bill of sale had been in her name, though prosecutors had determined that she had not been aware of her mother's plan. Michelle had been horrified when she found out what her mother had done. What does she want to say? She did not tell me specifics, but I think she feels responsible, even though she was not. It is up to you if you want to meet with her. I thought about it for a few days. Part of me wanted to just move on and forget the whole thing, but another part of me was curious. Finally, I agreed to meet Michelle at the same coffee shop where I had met with Robert. Michelle turned out to be a young woman in her mid-20s, with her mother's blonde hair but a much gentler demeanor. She looked nervous when I sat down across from her. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said quietly. "I know you did not have to. I am not sure what you want to say, but I am willing to listen." Michelle took a deep breath. "I want you to know that I had no idea what my mother was doing. When she told me she had bought a snow machine and was putting it in my name, I thought it was a surprise gift. I did not know it was yours. I did not know about the forged bill of sale or any of it. When the police came to question me, I was completely blindsided. The prosecutors cleared you. I know you were not involved. I know, but I still feel responsible. My mother did this because she thought she was helping me. She knew I wanted a snow machine, And somehow, in her twisted logic, she thought stealing yours and giving it to me was acceptable. I am so sorry for what she put you through. I looked at Michelle and saw genuine remorse in her eyes. She was not her mother. She was just someone caught in the crossfire of Patricia's bad decisions. I appreciate you saying that, and for what it is worth, I do not hold you responsible. Your mother made her own choices, and those choices had consequences. You should not have to carry that burden. Michelle's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, that means a lot. I am trying to move forward, but it is hard. Everyone in town knows who I am now. I am the daughter of the HOA president who tried to steal a snow machine. It is humiliating. People will forget eventually. Give it time. We talked for a little while longer. Michelle told me she was going back to school and trying to rebuild her life. She had cut off contact with her mother, at least for now, because she needed space to process everything that had happened. When we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure. The situation with Patricia had been resolved. Justice had been served. And while I would never get back the time and energy I had spent fighting this battle, I had learned valuable lessons about standing up for myself and not backing down when I knew I was right. The winter turned to spring, and life in Fairbanks continued its rhythm. I kept working as a civil engineer, taking on new projects and exploring the wilderness on weekends. My snow machine, properly registered and safely stored, was ready for the next winter season. The Northwood Hills HOA, under Robert's leadership, became a model of responsible governance. Rules were enforced fairly and consistently. Finances were transparent. Homeowners actually felt like they had a voice. It was a stark contrast to the Patricia Henderson era, and everyone appreciated the change. I even started attending HOA meetings occasionally, not because I had to, but because I wanted to be involved in the community. It turned out that when an HOA was run properly, it could actually be a positive force in the neighborhood. Who knew? One evening in May, I was working in my garage when Robert stopped by. He had a six-pack of beer and a grin on his face. "Thought you might want to celebrate," he said, handing me a beer. Celebrate what? The final restitution payment came through. The HOA is finally back to where it should be financially. And more importantly, we just got confirmation that Patricia's appeal was denied. The conviction stands. We cracked open the beers and sat on my driveway, watching the long Alaskan sunset. It was nearly 10 at night, but the sky was still bright. "You know," Robert said after a while, "I have been thinking about what happened with Patricia. How she let power go to her head, how she convinced herself that the rules did not apply to her. It is a cautionary tale." It is. But it is also a reminder that there are systems in place to catch people like her. The DMV flag, the police investigation, the legal system. It all worked the way it was supposed to. True. And it is a reminder that ordinary people can stand up to bullies and win. You could have just accepted the loss of your registration and moved on. Instead, you fought back, and you brought down a criminal enterprise disguised as an HOA. I laughed. I would not call it a criminal enterprise. More like one very misguided woman who thought she could get away with anything. Potato, potato. The point is, you made a difference. The whole neighborhood is better because you refuse to be pushed around. We finished our beers and talked about other things. Work, hobbies, plans for the summer. It felt good to have normal conversations again, to not be consumed by legal battles and HOA drama. As Robert left, he turned back and said, "By the way, we are officially killing the community park proposal. Your property is yours and it is going to stay that way. Just thought you should know." I appreciate that. Thank you for everything, Lucas. Really. After he left, I went back into my garage and looked at my snow machine. It sat there, gleaming and ready, a symbol of everything I had fought for. Not just the machine itself, but the principle of the thing. The idea that people could not just take what they wanted, that there were rules and consequences, and that standing up for yourself mattered. I thought about Patricia Henderson, sitting in a prison cell, probably wondering how her life had gone so wrong. Part of me felt sympathy for her. She had destroyed her own life over a piece of recreational equipment and a misguided plan to expand her power and control. But mostly, I felt grateful. Grateful that I had caught her on camera. Grateful that Susan at the DMV had suggested flagging my registration. Grateful for Officer Torres, for Diana, for Robert, and for everyone who had supported me through the ordeal. The whole experience had taught me something important about community and accountability. An HOA, or any organization, is only as good as the people running it. When those people abuse their power, it is up to the community to hold them accountable. And when individuals are wronged, it is up to them to stand up and fight back. Over the summer, I became more involved in neighborhood activities. I volunteered for a community cleanup day. I attended social events at the community center. I even joined a committee to review and update the HOA bylaws to prevent future abuses of power. The new bylaws included term limits for board members, mandatory financial audits, and a clear process for removing officers who violated their duties. Robert joked that we should call them the Patricia Henderson Memorial Bylaws, but we settled on something less inflammatory. Life moved on. The story of Patricia Henderson became neighborhood legend, a cautionary tale told at barbecues and block parties. New residents heard the story and could not believe it had actually happened. Long-time residents just shook their heads and said they had always known Patricia was trouble for me. The whole experience became a defining moment. It reminded me that I had a spine, that I could stand up for myself when it mattered. It also reminded me that the systems we often take for granted, like the DMV, the police, and the legal system, actually work when we use them properly. My Snowmachine registration, the replacement one, sat safely in my filing cabinet. I made copies and stored them in multiple locations, just in case. I also installed better locks on my garage and upgraded my security cameras. Once bitten, twice shy, as they say. In August, I received a letter from the Alaska Department of Motor Vehicles. It was from Susan, the woman who had helped me flag my registration. She had written to tell me that my case had been used as a training example for DMV staff across the state. The procedure for flagging stolen registrations had been streamlined and improved because of what had happened. Your quick thinking and our flagging system prevented a successful fraud, Susan wrote. Because of this case, we have been able to catch 3 other similar attempts in different parts of Alaska. You helped make the system better for everyone. I wrote back to thank her. It felt good to know that something positive had come out of the whole mess. As fall approached and the temperatures started dropping again, I prepared my Snowmachine for the season. I changed the oil, checked the belts, filled the gas tank. Everything was in perfect working order, just as it should be. The first snow came in late September, earlier than usual. I woke up one Saturday morning to find 6 inches of fresh powder on the ground. It was time. I loaded up my gear, started the Snowmachine, and headed out into the wilderness. The cold air bit at my face, and the engine roared beneath me. The landscape stretched out in every direction, white and perfect and free. As I rode, I thought about everything that had happened over the past year. The theft, the investigation, the trial, the conviction. It had been exhausting and frustrating and occasionally terrifying. But it had also been necessary. Patricia Henderson had tried to take something from me, not just a piece of paper, but my dignity and my property rights. She had thought she could get away with it, because she was used to getting away with things. She was used to people backing down, to rules not applying to her, to being in charge. But she had been wrong. And now she was paying the price. I rode for hours that day, pushing deep into the backcountry, far from roads and houses and HOAs. Out there, none of the petty dramas of suburban life mattered. There was just the snow, the mountains, and the endless sky. When I finally returned home that evening, tired and satisfied, I found a note taped to my front door. It was from Robert. Board meeting next Tuesday. We are voting on new holiday decorating guidelines. Your input would be appreciated. Also, pizza at my place after. You are invited. I smiled and tucked the note in my pocket. Life was back to normal, or as normal as it gets in a place like Fairbanks. The neighborhood had survived Patricia Henderson, and we had come out stronger on the other side. As I put my snow machine away and locked the garage, I looked at the security camera mounted in the corner. It was still recording, still watching, still ready to catch anyone who thought they could come onto my property and take what was not theirs. But I did not think that would be a problem anymore. Word had gotten around. Lucas Jensen was not someone to mess with. He had taken on the HOA president and won. He had stood up to a bully and brought her down, and honestly, that felt pretty good. The following months were peaceful. The new HOA board functioned smoothly. Meetings were productive and civil. Decisions were made transparently, with input from homeowners. It was almost boring compared to the Patricia Henderson era, but boring was exactly what everyone wanted. I continued to ride my snow machine throughout the winter, exploring new trails and enjoying the freedom of the Alaskan wilderness. Every time I checked my registration before heading out, I thought about how close I had come to losing it all because of one person's greed and arrogance. In December, the local newspaper ran a year-end retrospective on the biggest stories of the year. Patricia Henderson's case made the top 5. The article summarized the events, the trial, and the conviction. It noted that the case had led to reforms in HOA governance across Fairbanks and had even prompted state legislators to consider new laws regulating homeowners associations. I was quoted in the article, saying simply, "I hope this serves as a reminder that no one is above the law, no matter what position they hold. HOA boards serve homeowners, not the other way around." The article also mentioned that Patricia was serving her sentence at Hilland Mountain Correctional Center in Eagle River, about 300 miles south of Fairbanks. She had reportedly been a model prisoner, participating in education programs and expressing remorse for her actions. I did not know if her remorse was genuine or if she was just trying to get early parole. Either way, it was not my concern anymore. She had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. As the year drew to a close, I reflected on everything that had happened. In a strange way, I was grateful for the whole experience. It had shown me what I was capable of when pushed. It had connected me with good people like Robert and Deanna. It had even made me a more engaged member of my community, and it had given me a hell of a story to tell. On New Year's Eve, the neighborhood held a party at the community center. I went, expecting the usual small talk and polite conversations. Instead, I found myself surrounded by people who wanted to thank me for what I had done. "You saved this neighborhood," one elderly woman told me, gripping my hand tightly. "Patricia had become unbearable. No one dared stand up to her. You did, and you changed everything." Others echoed similar sentiments. I had never thought of myself as a hero, just someone who refused to be pushed around. But to these people, that was exactly what a hero was. As midnight approached and everyone counted down to the new year, I stood outside the community center, looking up at the stars. The temperature was well below zero and my breath formed clouds in the air. But I did not mind the cold. I had lived in Alaska long enough to embrace it. The countdown reached zero, and cheers erupted from inside. Fireworks lit up the sky, illegal but tolerated on this one night of the year. I watched them explode in brilliant colors against the darkness and thought about new beginnings. Patricia Henderson's reign of terror was over. The neighborhood had healed. Justice had been served. And I still had my snow machine, properly registered and ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. As I walked back to my house that night, passing through streets I had come to know well, I felt at peace. The battle was over. The war was won. And life, finally, could go back to being wonderfully, blissfully boring. My name is Lucas Jensen, and this is the story of how an HOA president tried to steal my snow machine registration, how the DMV helped me catch her, and how justice ultimately prevailed. It is a story about standing up for yourself, about the importance of documentation and evidence, and about the fact that no one, no matter how powerful they think they are, is above the law. And it is a story with a happy ending, which in the world of HOA disputes is rarer than you might think.